risks, we miss opportunities. We miss opportunities for growth. We miss opportunities for success. We miss opportunities for connections. Risk drives progress. Hello, welcome to today's burst of innovation. Today's burst is all about risk and building those risk muscles. Now, I was listening to some podcasts recently about risk specifically because I wanted to understand the relationship that we have with risk, because I think oftentimes we see people who we would deem risk takers and we think, oh, that person is so good at taking risk. Oh, that person really, they just leap without fear. And I think sometimes we forget that those people, yeah, they take massive risks, but this is not their first time at the rodeo. They've been taking risks. This is their, millionth time at the rodeo, their 10,000th time in the rodeo. And what I really come to learn in my work in innovation and kind of how the human brain works and performance kind of studies is that risk is really a muscle that we can actually hone in. So the more we practice, the stronger that muscle gets. And the people that we revere for being risk takers aren't necessarily very different than us. They simply have more practice than some of us in actually taking that risk. So let me ask you a question before I dig in. And I've got 5 things that I want to show you, 5 ways that you can develop your risk muscle. Let me ask you a question. Just put this in a sentence in the chat bar. How risk accepting or risk adverse would you say you are? If you thought about how you view risk, what would you say you are? Are you highly risk accepting? You're like, yes, risk doesn't scare me. Are you risk adverse? Are you like, I dip a toe in the water first? All of them are okay. I'm just very curious where all of us fit on the scale. So put in there where you fall on the risk scale. Risk adverse, risk accepting, somewhere in the middle. I find some people, by the way, are situational, meaning they're really good at taking risks in some places, and then in other places, they don't. Mary T says, I am middle of the road, leaning to more safe. Okay, yeah, I can see that about you, Mary T. That makes a lot of sense from what I know about you. And as I said, some people are hey, you want to try a new restaurant and you have no context for it if it's any good and you don't even read the reviews. Like some people see that as being risk accepting, where others see, it about being work and like taking a risk of work, speaking up in a meeting, trying a new product, changing jobs. So there's a lot of ways to think about risk. Kirby says situation dependent. So risk is so interesting to me because, again, I think it's something that we often look at other people and revere and forget to realize that we have the ability to grow risk in ourselves. Now, before I give you the tools of how to grow your risk muscles, let me just, for context and put us all kind of moving forward in the same direction, talk about why risk is important in the world that we're in. Taking risks has always been important. If we don't take risks, we miss opportunities. We miss opportunities for growth. We miss opportunities for success. We miss opportunities for connections. Risk drives progress. Let me say that again because I think it's so important. Risk drives progress. When we are not taking risks, I'm going to talk a little bit about risks we're not taking risks, we're standing still. And when we're standing still, as you and I know, the world around us is still moving forward. So if we're standing still and the world is moving forward and we're not growing with the world, we're creating a bigger disconnect between us and the things we are trying to achieve, our personal growth and development, our professional progress, whatever it is. So risk has got to become a part of all of our daily lives in small and big ways. Now, here's the thing about risk that I want to just say quickly. Risk is based more on perception than reality. We perceive that something's going to be a big risk. And Paul, might perceive as something as not risky at all, and I perceive it as very risky. And that's based on my own experiences, my own perception of what could go wrong, what could go right. So risk is very personal, and I would never take that away from someone. Paul says his depends on circumstances too. Yeah, I think we're very situational with risk. So, but I wanna remind us all that how we view risk is very personal, and I think sometimes it blows our mind, doesn't it, when we're in meetings with people and we're over there like, we've got to go with this idea. If we don't pursue this strategy, we're going to fall behind the competition, and we see the risk as not doing something, and the person across the table sees the risk of doing something as being big. So remember that when we talk about this. But as I said, risk is essential for moving forward. Risk is how we create progress, it's how we create momentum, and it's how we create success. So we've got to get more comfortable with it, especially in a world that's ever changing, where we won't have all the information all the time, where we don't have the time to gather all the information. We've got to move with what we've got. It's important when, those who leap and take the opportunities are the ones that win, and those who don't, do not. We cannot afford to stand still. So let me share with you 5 things that you can do every single day to actually improve your risk muscle. Are you ready for it? Let me pull it up. Give me a sec here. I got to pull it up on my screen as usual. Where did it go? Oh, right there. Okay. Woo, had a moment. Okay, let me get my chat bar back up so I can see your comments. Okay, you're ready. I'm glad you're ready. Excellent. All right. So Kirby says, I think taking on more risk is more acceptable than not as we get more experience in the area. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, Kirby. So here are the things that I want you to think about doing to build your risk muscle. Number 1, take small, then bigger, then massive steps outside your comfort zone. Taking risks feels really awkward and really uncomfortable. So we got to get used to that feeling. And if you're one who is very risk adverse, if you like what tried and true and what you know, take small steps outside. Make one small decision that makes you gulp a little bit. Speak up in that one meeting in a way that it's uncomfortable because you have a dissenting opinion. Try talking to one person about that idea you have to see what they say. If you're really risk adverse, just take a small step, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go. I think the best risks are the small ones that we learn from along the way. They add up to the massive steps. I think it's a little bit exhausting or fearful. I get fearful thinking about I have to leap outside my comfort zone. Well, if I'm not used to doing that, that's really uncomfortable for me. So if that's you, take small steps, one little decision, one little action, right? Get some feedback for how it feels to be uncomfortable. Get your brain in a place where it actually getting uncomfortable becomes a pattern. So here's the thing. Our brains are full of tracks, deep grooves that are habits and our behaviors that are ingrained over time. So if your habit or behavior that's ingrained over time is staying safe, taking a massive step is going to be not only uncomfortable, but really hard. But if you start to take small steps, then you're going to start to lay new tracks. Those grooves are going to get deeper and deeper in your brain. That feeling of uncomfortable, while still there, you'll realize you can manage and deal with, and you'll get bigger and bigger. Now, if you're used to taking massive steps, take even bigger ones. Wherever you are, I want you to go a little bit further and start to build more of those tracks inside your brain. All right, the next one, that's number 1. Number 2, stop making excuses, start making reasons. So oftentimes what holds us back is the excuses that we come up with to not do something to stay safe. That's our primal brain. Remember, mine's Bernard. I hope you name yours. Do you have names? Tell me if you have a name for yours. Bernard is over there trying to keep me safe and comfortable in the place that I am. So it fears any kind of risk. And if I listen to the excuses, it becomes very easy for me not to move forward. But if I start making reasons for why doing whatever it is I want to do that feels uncomfortable, if I start making reasons to do that, to pursue that, I start to get pulled in that direction versus being held in place. So stop making excuses and start making reasons. What I like to do is when I hear Bernard start to pick up momentum, which he does, I start to go, okay, Bernard, those are the excuses. I acknowledge them. I'm not going to hide them. I'm not going to pretend like I don't feel that way. But let me give you the reasons why we should do this. It's a very simple, plus minus analysis. But we've got to fall in love with our reasons. And we've got to give our reasons a louder voice than our excuses. Our excuses can overwhelm us and take over us if we let them. So that's number 2. All right, number 3, focus on courage, not fear. So similar to excuses and reasons, it's very easy to focus on the fear of what could go wrong versus the courage to think about what could go right. I think it actually takes courage to think about what could go right. We often, when we talk about quote unquote risk, and again, I'm putting in quotes because it's very personal and different for all of us, we often talk about, well, what could go wrong, right? That is what kind of drags us down or keeps us from moving forward. When we think about what could go right, when we have the courage to think about what could go right and actually not fear the worst case scenario, because for most of us, a worst case scenario is really not the end of the world, right? It's really not as bad as we like to think it is. But when we start to focus on the courage and not the fear, we're able to dial up our risk muscle. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is move before you know all. All right. So I said it in the why that we are in a world where we simply don't have all the answers we want to be able to make decisions. We have to make the best decision, take the best action we can with the knowledge that we have. I personally believe in the 70% rule, which is that if I know 70%, then I am moving forward. Sometimes I have to move forward with 30%. But if your risk muscle is a little weaker, just start practicing that of moving forward before you have all the answers. I'll give you a tiny little thing that you can do. The next time you go out to dinner, you're going to pick a new restaurant, and then you're not going to plug in where you're going until you get in your car. I know it sounds so basic, doesn't it? But remember how we talked about grooves in the brain? So when we start to practice making decisions and doing things without having all the information, we get stronger at it. And then it starts to trickle into the other areas of our life, including work. So move before you know all. When you're in a meeting and there's a decision that needs to be made and you're over there, your brain's going, but I don't have all the information. That's okay. Stop and say, here's the action I think we should take. You know, right? Part of this is confidence, but that risk muscle needs to practice moving without knowing everything. Yes, Paul, you're absolutely right. Number 4 avoids analysis paralysis. We just got to do it. And you know what? It is, the moment, because tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you feel differently. But I'm pretty certain in my years of experience, this is what I've discovered with people and myself. The moment you could move forward, but use, I need more data, more information, more time as an excuse. How many times have you been stuck in that analysis paralysis when you could have moved forward? So move before you know. Practicing that in small little ways over and over again will help you build that muscle. Okay. So Kirby says, I have used, and it brings cognitive congruence versus dissonance for number 3. Yes, exactly, right? You focus on the courage that you're taking, you focus on the reasons that you're making in number 2, and then you move forward, and that builds that risk muscle. Okay, number 4, number 5, I think is really important. Feel the pain and get used to it. Here's the thing about taking risks, big and small. It creates incredible discomfort, I should say. It creates discomfort in us, emotional discomfort. And we've got to get used to having it and being okay with it. And then over time, our ability to deal with that will expand like a rubber band. The very first time you take a risk, like a big risk, it really hurts. But you know what? The time after that hurts a little bit less and a little less. You get used to it, because here's the deal with risk. It may work out, it may not. And that moment, it's almost like anticipation is worse than whatever the experience is. It's the same thing with risk, I find, right? Our perception of what could possibly go wrong, our worry, is actually what's hurting us more than what the actual situation is. But we got to get used to feeling the pain. And if I added a number 6 in here, I'd say go out there and take your first risk and feel your first pain, because the first one's the hardest. And once you do that, it gets easier and easier and easier. It's not that the pain goes away. I feel incredible discomfort when I do big things. When I'm pretty practiced in taking risks. I'm a business owner and I'm in the space of innovation. So it's part of my job. But, when I take those big ones, the pain doesn't go away, but I know how to deal with the discomfort. And I know it's temporary. when you know the pain is temporary, that it's more like a wave than kind of a sustained feeling, you're more likely to get through it. And Mia says, yes, and keep ideas simple. Yes, complexity is the enemy. Absolutely. If we want to build our risk muscles, pull things back to the most simple layer and do that. All right, let me ask you this. Which one are you going to focus on to build your risk muscles? Number one, taking small, bigger, massive steps outside your comfort zone from wherever you are, bigger than what you did. Number two, stop making excuses, start making reasons. Number three, focus on courage, not fear. Number four, move before you know all. And then number five, feel the pain and get used to it. What are you going to do to build your risk muscle today? I want to know one thing that you're going to do. And if you've got this thing like, oh, I've got a meeting coming up and I'm going to do this, or, oh, I've been playing around with this idea and I'm going to do that, say it. Put it in the chat bar. I think owning it is part of building those risk muscles. I cannot iterate enough that number one, having that risk muscle is important to your success. It is integral in the world that we're in. Risk creates momentum. It creates progress. It creates success. So we've got to get better at it. We cannot afford to stand still in a competitive, cluttered marketplace. Number two, it's a muscle. So let's build it and get it stronger. And if you don't have it, it's not because that's who you are as a person and you can't get better. It's because you simply need to build the muscles a little bit more. All right. So it sounds like 4 is kind of the winner over here. Oh, Paul says 3 and 2. Yeah, exactly. Number 3 reinforces the reasons, right? 2 and 3 kind of go together, don't they? One of them is more logical and one of them is more emotional. So number 2, making excuses and reasons, start making reasons, that's logical. And number 3, the focus on courage, not fear, that's emotional. Number 2, yeah, stop making excuses. So what I love to do on number 2, by the way, is I love to actually just make 2 columns and map it out and have a conversation with myself, because once I start writing it down, the reasons really, I can see visually how the reasons outweigh the excuses. And I think that's important. So if we're going to be the strong everyday innovators that we're meant to be, right, we gotta fall in love with those reasons and with our courage, and we got to move and get used to pain. This is all part of being an everyday innovator and creating that ripple effect in our worlds, wherever we are. So, okay, this is awesome. So remember, risk is a muscle. It is essential for your success. And there are small things that you can do every day to build that muscle. Now, my last question for you, you've been so good, this is so great, is what's your aha out of today? What's the thing that's sticking with you? Not just the to-do, but just that like, oh, that really landed with me. What is that? I'll give you a second to type. I'd love to know what landed with you. Kirby says number 5, feel the pain and get used to it. You know what? For me, it was interesting because I always thought that pain was the problem that I have with pain is that I see it as permanent, and it's not. It's waves. And it wasn't until I realized that I was able to really dial up my risk muscles in a smart way, because I knew that it's going to come and it's going to go. That is a really powerful. When you realize that, it becomes so much easier. All right. Mary T says, I can do this and I don't have to be a risk taker experiential. No, Mary T, you absolutely do not. We all have this. Now, as those of us who are risk takers on our everyday innovator styles, right? So, and by the way, if you're new to this and you're like, what are you talking about, Tamara and Mary T? We all have a way that we innovate, a unique style. And we over at Launch Street build a proprietary assessment that tells you how. You can go to our website, go to Launch Street and get the assessment, discover your everyday innovator style. Risk goes across all of them, but they're one of the styles of the 9 that I have as a power trigger, and me on here as a power trigger is risk takers. So for us, being uncomfortable is actually a powerful place for us to be. So we got to go bigger and bigger, but that's not everybody. You innovate in your way, and these things can help you. Okay, let me see what else is going on here. Risk taking will take my business to a whole new level. Yeah, Mia, absolutely. And it's lacking in risk is lacking in opportunity. And we see that time and time again, don't we? And we always look at risk when people do them and pay off and we go, well, it's the right thing to do. Well, of course it was, but that's because we're Monday morning quarterbacking. It doesn't seem risky once it's successful because then we validate it. So we just got to get past that unknown part where it feels risky and get to the validated part. Okay, let's see. The importance of a bit of risk in this ever-changing world. We need to focus on courage. Yeah, Paul, I'm 100% with you. It is, we just can't afford not to. This is not, we don't live in 50-year cycles anymore. We live in 5-month cycles. So we got to get to it. And here's the thing I'd say, it may not get, you may not ever love it, but it will get easier and you will get more comfortable with it. Kirby says it can be uncomfortable, but it gets you to a higher level of performance. Yes, 100. You guys are amazing. 100% agree with all these. Okay, this is so good. Thank you so much for joining today. Go build those risk muscles. I'm going to do one thing today to build my risk muscle. And I got to think about what that is, but whatever it is, I'm going to do it. Believe me, when the moment presents itself, right? Because you get that feeling in your gut and you're like, oh, that's the moment That's number 4. That's move before you know all. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next week. Hey, if you have any topics or areas that you want me to consider covering, just hit reply on one of the, you get those hour before Zoom emails. I think you could just respond directly back to me and let me know. I'd love to know if there's any topics that really speak to you or any challenges that you're facing that if we covered in our quick burst would be helpful to get your week started. Because this is all about kickstarting your week with innovation. All right, everybody. I will see you next time.